Moses said, "Select a lamb for your families and slaughter the Passover lamb. Take a bunch of hyssop and dip it in the bowl of blood and smear it on the tops and sides of the door frames. God will pass through to strike down Egypt. When he sees the blood on the tops and sides of the door frames, God will pass over the doorway. He won't let the destroyer enter your house to strike you down. You will celebrate it as a festival to God, down through the generations. You are to eat the meat roasted in the fire, along with bread made without yeast and bitter herbs." Exodus 12. Station 1 Reflection. The destroyer angel was to kill the firstborn in any home that did not have the lamb's blood on their doorposts. Jesus is described in the New Testament as a Passover lamb. Ask the children if they know in what ways Jesus was the same as a Passover lamb. Perfect. Blood guarantees protection. Lamb, Jesus, equals a substitute death. And just as the destroyer would have killed the firstborn in any home without the lamb's blood, so too we are destined to die and suffer eternal judgment without a belief in Jesus' blood to save us. Take the paintbrush, dip it in the paint, and smear it on the tops or sides of the doorframe as a reminder of the blood of the perfect Lamb Jesus to save us from our sins. Station 2, the Lord's Supper, the new Passover. If the offering is a whole burnt offering from the herd, present a male without a defect at the entrance to the tent of meeting, that it may be accepted by God. Lay your hand on the head of the whole burnt offering so that it may be accepted on your behalf to make atonement for you. Jesus sat down with his apostles and said, "You have no idea how much I looked forward to eating this Passover meal with you before I enter my time of suffering." Taking the cup, he blessed it, then said, "Take this and share it among yourselves." Taking the bread, he blessed it, broke it, and gave it to them, saying, "This is my body, which is given for you. Eat in remembrance of me." Station 2, Reflection. The new Passover meal is termed the Lord's Supper as we remember the sacrifice Jesus made on our behalf. As the sin was passed on to the burnt offering by putting your hand on it before it was sacrificed, so too our sin has been passed on to Jesus. As you are gathered around this table, remember that Jesus was also gathered around a table with his disciples at his Last Supper with them before his crucifixion. Jesus asks us to remember the sacrifice he made on our behalf by drinking wine to remind us of his blood poured out and eating bread to remind us of his body broken for us. Take some of the grape juice and then take the cracker and dip it into the juice. Remembering Jesus' forgiveness of all your wrong, partake of the cracker and the juice. Station 3, Gethsemane. Then Jesus went with his disciples to a place called Gethsemane, and he said to them, "Sit here while I go over there and pray." He took Peter and the two sons of Zebedee along with him, and he began to be sorrowful and troubled. Then he said to them, "My soul is deeply overwhelmed with sorrow to the point of death. Stay here and keep watch with me." Going a little further, he fell with his face to the ground and prayed, "My Father, if it is possible, may this cup be taken from me, yet not as I will, but as you will." Station 3, Reflection. This scene reveals the sorrow in Jesus' heart that night. He prayed the hardest prayer any of us can pray. "Yet as not I will, but as you will." When Jesus said, "May this cup be taken from me," he was referring to the difficult task his Father was asking him to bear. Yet he chose to go through the pain of the cross anyway, knowing this was God's desire for him. All of us have difficult tasks in life that God our Father asks us to do. They are difficult because our flawed human nature is opposed to the pure will of God. We may be convinced that God's will for us is for our best interest, but it is often hard to follow through on nonetheless. Take a few minutes and consider making Jesus' prayer your own. "Not my will, but yours be done in my life," in whatever he may be asking you in these days. Station 4, Jesus' arrest. And having arrested Jesus, they led him away and brought him to the house of the high priest. But Peter was following at a distance. And after they kindled a fire in the middle of the courtyard and had sat down together, Peter was sitting among them. And a servant girl, seeing him as he sat in the firelight and looking intently at him, said, "This man was with him too." But Peter denied it, saying, "Women, I do not know him." Station 4, Reflection. Here was Peter in a place of comfort, warming himself. But instead of being among fellow disciples, he was among secular people. As the woman recognized him, Peter had the opportunity to proudly declare himself as a follower of Jesus, but instead he chose to deny him. Think about the places in life where you find yourself in the company of secular people: the workplace, university, school, sports team, neighborhood. Now imagine someone there associates you with being a Christian. How would you respond? Take a few minutes and tell the Lord how honored you are to be a follower of His, and given the opportunity, would tell the world you are proud to be a Christian. Station 5, the Crucifixion. And they came to the place called the Skull. There they crucified him and the criminals, one on the right and one on the left. But Jesus was saying, "Father, forgive them, for they do not know what they are doing." Now there was also an inscription above him, "This is the King of the Jews." And one of the criminals who was hanged there was hurling abuse at him, saying, "Are you not the Christ? Save yourself and us." But the other answered and rebuking him said, "Do you not even fear God, since you are under the same sentence of condemnation? And we indeed justly, for we are receiving what we deserve for our deeds. But this man has done nothing wrong." And he was saying, "Jesus, remember me when you come in your kingdom." And he said to him, "Truly I say to you, today you will be with me in paradise." Station 5, Reflection. The cross in front of you is roughly the same size and weight as those that were used for Roman crucifixion during the time of Jesus. As you look at the cross and reflect on the crucifixion of Jesus, remember that he did this for you, and that the promise of being with him in paradise is given to all those who believe in him. Station 6. Jesus' Resurrection. After the Sabbath, at dawn on the first day of the week, Mary Magdalene and the other Mary went to look at the tomb. There was a violent earthquake, for an angel of the Lord came down from heaven, and going to the tomb, rolled back the stone and sat on it. His appearance was like lightning, and his clothes were white as snow. The guards were so afraid of him that they shook and became like dead men. The angel said to the woman, "Do not be afraid, for I know that you are looking for Jesus who was crucified. He is not here. He has risen, just as he said. Come and see the place where he lay. Then go quickly and tell his disciples, he is risen from the dead and is going ahead of you into Galilee. There you will see him. Now I have told you." So the women hurried away from the tomb, afraid yet filled with joy, and ran to tell his disciples. Suddenly Jesus met them. "Greetings," he said. They came to him, clasped his feet, and worshipped him. Then Jesus said to them, "Do not be afraid. Go and tell my brothers to go to Galilee. There they will see me." Station 6. Reflection. Imagine the cold, heavy, anxious fear and sorrow that these women must have felt as they journeyed to the tomb that day. Imagine them arriving at the tomb and finding the stone rolled away, the empty grave clothes in the place where Jesus' body was supposed to be. Imagine the shock and the overwhelming joy they felt as they met the risen Jesus in the garden. Their Lord was alive. Imagine how these women were transformed in that one moment. This is a day of celebration as we remember the resurrection of Jesus. Take a few minutes to rejoice in prayer.